What's up, everybody? It's your friend Fast Feet Freddy coming to you with another video. But before we get into it, please remember to like and subscribe. I appreciate all your love and support. And with that, we're talking about the real reason that the Nebraska Cornhuskers ain't ready for Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. So, number one, we are going to start with the Buffaloes offense versus Nebraska's defense. So the Colorado Buffaloes offensive coordinator for the year 2023 is Kent State's head coach of 2022, Sean Lewis. Now, Sean Lewis led a prolific offense at Kent State. Their offense averaged 417 total yards per game and 202 rushing yards per game. Now, before you guys get down in the comments, the ones who are anti-Buffs, and start saying, well, it's Kent State and blah, 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 the teams they played. These stats include game against Washington. They also played the Oklahoma Sooners and the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. So these statistics that I told you, the 417 total yards per game and 202 rushing yard per game, that includes those three teams in their whole schedule for the year. By the way, Sean Lewis and his offense scored 22 points on the Georgia Bulldogs, which is a lot more than the TCU Horned Frogs did in the title game, if that'll give you some kind of perspective and an example of how much better Sean Lewis's offense is than the TCU Horned Frogs. So, with that being said, Sean Lewis didn't even have the weapons that he has with the Buffaloes. You have a 4-3 running back in Dylan Edwards. You have Cavassier Smoke, who's already proven that he can run in a big Power 5 school coming from Kentucky and a big conference. You also have the AAC Freshman of the Year running back in Alton McCaskill, who, if he has a good year, if he gets back to where he was, if not even better, will be a problem for any defensive line, any defensive coordinator, because the boy can flat out run. So with those weapons that Sean Lewis has there, not to mention the 6'4", 220-pound Javon Antonio out at wide receiver. Then you have Travis Hunter, the 5-star Travis Hunter, who can catch everything, who's a freak of nature. And then you have the speedy Jimmy Horn Jr., who can burn you. 4.3 speed. You better go watch his highlights, because Jimmy Horn Jr. will leave you in the dust. You do not have a secondary, Nebraska. You do not have a secondary that can cover all three of those players and still be able to stop Cavassier Smoke, Alton McCaskill, and Dylan Edwards. You've got the offensive line for the Colorado Buffaloes that is much improved from last year. They brought over two of Sean Lewis's offensive linemen from Kent State. You've got the Jackson State transfer, Mr. Brown, the strongest offensive lineman probably in the conference on that line. They are going to be salty as well. All right, we're going to move on to the Nebraska defense. Let's go. All right, the new defensive coordinator for the Nebraska Cornhuskers defense is Tony White. He comes over as a first-year coach for Nebraska from Syracuse. Now, Syracuse, their defense was all right, but Syracuse defense was 41st in points allowed. Okay, that's not too bad. You know what I'm saying? It's not terrible. Out of 100 and something, 130 something, to be 41st, it's okay. You know what I mean? But his resume isn't pages long, you know what I'm saying? He's getting started, but Tony White is their new defensive coordinator. Here's the issue that Tony White has as a defensive coordinator right now, is that Nebraska's defensive line depth, it's thin. It's thinner than Colorado's. You know what I mean? And not to mention, they're going from their normal Nebraska's normal 4-3 defense or a 3-4 defense, where you have 7 big guys on the field, big defensive linemen, linebackers, whatever have you. They're going to a 3-3-5 defense. Now, let me tell you why that's important. because you go from having 7 big dudes on the field to only having 6 big dudes on the field. You go to having 5 DBs on the field. So you're going to be smaller. You're going to be faster, right? Because you're adding one extra fast guy in the backfield. But when you have all the weapons that Colorado has on the receiving end, you can try to double one of those guys that I mentioned before, Javon or Jimmy or Travis. You can double team just 2 of those guys. One of those guys is going to be one-on-one. You're not going to win a one-on-one battle with Travis Hunter. You're not going to win a one-on-one battle with Jimmy Horn Jr. And you sure ain't going to win a one-on-one battle with Javon Antonio. Okay? So you can go 5 DBs if you want to, but you're still going to have one of those guys be one-on-one. Now, the other problem you're going to have is that if you got one less big dude to stop the run, you only have 3 down linemen at the line of scrimmage, and Alton McCaskill and Cavassier Smoke and Dylan Edwards are running the ball. If that offensive line is pushing you and making holes, whoo, boy, and your secondary has to tackle those 2 monsters and try to catch a speedster, I will take that bet all day. All day I'll take that bet. Hey, I'm just spitting facts here, okay? If y'all are welcome to your opinion, this is America, okay? America. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Now, let's go to Nebraska's offense, okay? You lost your starting quarterback from last year, but you picked up Jeff Sims. Good-looking kid athletically, got a good, strong arm. He can run, you know what I'm saying? So he can run. But here's the problem. Who's he going to throw it to? Nebraska lost 3 starting wide receivers to the transfer portal, and one of them was a dog. And then they lost a 4th one to the NFL draft. So Nebraska has some good recruits coming in. But your wide receivers are, first of all, unproven. Second of all, they're young. So are you going to have Jeff Sims throw passes to a young wide receiver core against Travis Hunter, Cormani McClain, Travis J from FSU, and Shiloh Sanders? I'll take that bet too. I would take that bet too. And if Jeff Sims isn't going to have nobody to throw to, right? Or anybody consistent to throw to, and you got them dogs in the secondary, you're going to have a long day. But if your quarterback, Jeff Sims, is going to try to run the ball, he's going to try to run the ball out there, right? First of all, he's got to get away from some of the dogs that we got on the edges. But if he does, and he gets out in the open field, and Shiloh Sanders comes out there to greet you, yes, sir, I would love to see that. You go ahead and do that all day long, and you let Shiloh Sanders say hello a couple times, you're going to quit running out there, boy. I promise you. But look, Nebraska has depth at their running back position, right? They got some good running backs. But I'm going to tell you this. Nebraska's offensive line was terrible last year. They were terrible last year, right? Like, people are going to say anything they want to about Colorado's offensive line, but you can say equally about Nebraska's offensive line. And Nebraska really hasn't even addressed it. They're thin at the offensive line position. So, yes, you may be a little deep at running back. But if your O-line ain't blocking for them the way you need them to, that ain't going to matter. You don't have them blocking for your quarterback, like he ain't going to be running. You know what I mean? We want him to be under pressure. All that pressure him throwing against the secondary that Colorado has, yes, sir. Most of us know that the new defensive coordinator for the Colorado Buffaloes is Charles Kelly from Alabama. Coach under Nick Saban. Is a no-nonsense kind of dude, right? And you can say most defensive coordinators got that kind of persona. But Charles Kelly has the resume and the pedigree and everything else that you want in a defensive coordinator to back it up. You see, Charles Kelly won a national title at Florida State University when Jameis Winston was the quarterback. And Sal Sunseri, the Buffs defensive line coach, was coaching with him over at Florida State University. Sal Sunseri don't play either. He's been a coach of the NFL, was successful with the Raiders when their defense was boss. Sal Sinceri won titles over at Alabama, as well as Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly won a title. They got like 4 titles between the two, between Alabama and Florida State. And Sal Sinceri also coached defense at Tennessee. So both of these guys, I'm just speaking on resume. We're just talking Tony White versus, the defensive coaches for the Buffs here. We're just going apples to apples here. So just bear with me. Just follow along. You know what I mean? So those two guys have won titles. They got rings to prove it. They don't went through regular season and postseason and have had success. Okay. But what makes it really unique that Charles Kelly and Sal Sinceri they already know about FSU talent. They already know about that Florida State talent and Alabama talent, and they got a bunch of it on their defense. They know how to coach those guys. They know how to get them to win. They know what they're getting. They know exactly what they are doing. Let's talk about just in general, Coach Prime versus Matt Rhule, right? We all know Coach Prime, been to the Super Bowl and into the World Series in the same year. Bunch of success in high school, won 3 state championships back to back to back, SWAC champion back to back, has the formula. He has had success and he's doing it again. Matt Rhule at Baylor had some success, but he went to the NFL for the Panthers. He didn't do so good. He was not successful there. And now he's over at Nebraska. He's starting all over again. You can't tell me that you know for sure that he's going to be successful there. Chip Kelly was very successful at Oregon. Went to the NFL. Didn't do so good. Went back to college. Has anybody heard from Chip Kelly? I haven't. Unless you're watching him specifically, I have not heard of Chip Kelly being as successful as he was when he was at Oregon. Okay? I'm not saying that Matt Rhule is not going to be successful at Nebraska because they got some good recruits coming in. But I'm talking about specifically because he's been real chippy about Coach Prime this year. And their fans are over here saying they're going to buy up all the tickets and this and that. And they're trying to flood Folsom Field for that first home game. But let me let you guys know something, Nebraska Cornhuskers. Let me let you know something. All right, Coach Prime has been sold out them season tickets. Did you see the spring game? Sold out the spring game. If you think there's going to be enough tickets available for you to come over there and flood that thing out and make it red, you're wrong, okay? And for those of you fortunate enough to get a ticket to come and watch history in person, well, I'm going to be very sorry to disappoint you, man, because if you're expecting to come in there and put it down on the Colorado Buffaloes, the 2023 Colorado Buffaloes, you wrong. That altitude, you ain't gonna be ready. Huh? All these dogs, you ain't gonna be ready. Okay? Your O-line, your D-line, you ain't gonna be ready. Because guess what? We coming.